These medical journals, when you read them, it is so hard to read. They don't use punctuation. It reads like you're reading like a philosophy book where they just have a lot of run-on sentences. I mean, you would have 3, 4 lines of words before you come across a comma or a colon or just a period, a full stop. They don't write these journals with proper punctuation marks, right? So you should still try to go into websites like the New England Journal of Medicine, the CDC, so many journals. They have so many journals that you can read and try to understand about what they do, what is going on in the medical industry, in the medical field. All right? Please try to do that. Talking about governments and how they lie to us, and they do a lot of awful things in the name of science. This is why when these medical doctors come on TV, these people from Johns Hopkins and these places, you have to take what they say with a grain of salt. Okay? I wanted to give you 4 examples of terrible experimentation that the US government and certain entities in America did to their citizens, to men and women. So I'm sure you have heard about HeLa cells. Henrietta Lacks. They took the first 2 letters of her name, her first name and her last name, and they created the term HeLa cells. Now, Henrietta Lacks was a black woman. She was born in Virginia in 1920. She passed away at the age of 31, very young, from cervical cancer. She was treated at Johns Hopkins University Hospital. And the doctor who treated her, he stole her cells. He stole her cells. She didn't know those cells were taken from her. Her family did not know. It was taken from her without her permission. And it wasn't until 20 years later, back in the 1970s, when they realized, her family realized that this had happened. A journalist wrote a book about that story, the Lacks family, Rebecca Skloot. The name of the book is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I'm just showing you the book. You don't have to get the book because I really want you to get that book, Virus Mania, and I hope you have already gotten it and reading it because this is important. That Virus Mania book, it's so significant for the times that we're living in. So, and I know books are so expensive. I spend hundreds of dollars on books, but I'm a bookworm. So, and I love to have knowledge and information. So I invest in books because, as they say, knowledge is power, right? So she had cervical cancer, and they took her cells. This doctor, this unethical doctor, took her cells without her permission. And those cells, they develop what they call now the HeLa cell line. As a matter of fact, I even came across in my reading of that document from the CDC, I came across the term HeLa cell line regarding COVID. So this woman, this black woman, her cells were used for so many things, which I'm going to outline in a minute. Her cells have been all over the world, bought and sold. Bought and sold. And her family did not get not one penny. And even after they found out about it, they didn't want any money. I think it was only one person in the family. I think it was her fifth child, because I think she had 5 children. I read this book about 5 years ago. I want to go and refresh my memory on it. But I think she had developed cancer, cervical cancer, after she had her 5th child. So I think the family, I don't know, they figure so much time has passed and they got over it or whatever. They didn't want money. They weren't asking for money. All they were asking for was to give them recognition, give them credit. So if the scientist did something with her cells and discovered something or cured something, the family asked that they give them credit. That's all they ask. But could you imagine these people, these wicked, wicked, satanic people at Johns Hopkins? The same people are all over the TV right now talking to you about a virus. These are the same people from Johns Hopkins. These wicked, evil, satanic people took this woman's cell without her permission and used it and made billions and billions of dollars. So healer cells, they call it immortal cells because look, they're using it right now for COVID. They're using it right now as we speak. So let me give you a few of the things that they did. Number one, in the 1950s, they used her cells, the healer cell lines, to create the polio vaccine. Now, I don't believe in vaccines. I think vaccines are just filthy. But whatever you think, they used her cell line to create the polio vaccine. They even shot her cells up into space. I don't know why they did that. These people are just crazy. They use her cells for cloning. Medical research on cloning. Think about that. They used her cells for studying in vitro fertilization. So those of you out there, women, who have had in vitro fertilization, or if you know someone who has had in vitro fertilization, you have Henrietta Lacks to thank for that. It was her cells that they used to do this kind of research. And I remember when I read this book, it occurred to me, I was like, wow, this woman, her cell was traded on the stock market, the medical market, all over the world. They made billions of dollars. And her family didn't get not one penny. How evil is that? And I was thinking, some of these white folks who are so racist, so prejudiced against black people, many of them, billions of them, millions, billions, there's 7.8 billion of us on this earth, and her cells are all over the world in labs everywhere doing research. I am thinking there are so many white folks with healer cells, healer's DNA in their body. Do you know, white folks? And I'm talking to those of you who are racist, who hate black people. Do you know that you probably have healer cells, healer DNA in your body? Something to think about, right? Something to think about. So they use her cells for cloning research. They used it for the polio vaccine. They used it for in vitro fertilization. And they shot it up to space for God knows what. I don't know. So The next thing I wanted to talk about, which I think a lot of Black people know about this, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to go down memory lane. I want to remind you of how evil your government can be, especially towards people of color. We all remember the Tuskegee Experiment, what they did to these Black men. They had the control group, they had the group with syphilis, and mind you, those Black men who had syphilis, they did not know. They went to the doctor. They discovered they had syphilis, but they didn't tell them. What they decided to do was do this experiment with the control group. So they had a control group and who didn't have syphilis, and then they had another group, and they lied to them and told them that they were just getting medical treatment, not realizing that they were actually testing them, not giving them any treatment, right? Knowing that syphilis can cause worst scenario, it can kill you, can cause blindness, brain damage, all kinds of stuff, syphilis. And they knew this, and they continued with the experiment for years. They were bribed into participating in the study that, oh, you're going to get free medical treatment and all of that. And they were doing all kinds of disguises with the placebos and all these things. And this went on for 40 years. 40 years. And by 1947, when they started giving penicillin for this syphilis, they still didn't give it to them. They deliberately kept this going for 40 years. And then think of all of the women who were infected, because the men who had syphilis were not told that they had they were not told that they had syphilis. Knowing that these men were going to go out into the community and have relations with women. Imagine how wicked that is. You see, they use humans. They've been using humans for experimentation for many years. And Black people, now they have stopped using Black people for experiments, but who knows, they're probably still doing it. Now they're using the animals, but before the animals, it was Black people. They had no qualms about using Black people for experimentation. So we all know about the Tuskegee Experiment, but also they were also doing syphilis experiment in Guatemala to find out the efficacy of the treatment for syphilis. In Guatemala, they even injected 1-year-old with syphilis. And why did they do this? Because they wanted to create treatments for the soldiers who were going away to war. These soldiers would have illicit sexual relations with people overseas, with women overseas, and get syphilis. So they were testing syphilis on people in Guatemala in order to create drugs for these men who were going away to war, to prevent them from getting sick and getting syphilis. Could you imagine that? The poor people of Guatemala, they actually did this to them in 1946. The other experimentation is the the mustard gas. They put men in a room, and they specifically put black men in the room because they wanted to see the effect of mustard gas on black skin. They also did it with Puerto Ricans and Japanese to see how it affects black skin. Just imagine, they put you into a room and they spray mustard gas in there. Some of them died, some of them got burned, some of them fainted or whatever. Just to see the effects of mustard gas on the skin, especially black skin. Could you believe that? It's crazy that your own government would do that to you, especially black people. And I'm talking to black people because I'm so disappointed in my black brothers and sisters. Most of them believe this nonsense right now that the government is telling them and the media is telling them, and they seem to forget history. They seem to forget what was done to their foreparents. So then the next thing I want to talk about that was so dastardly, so evil, there was a physician by the name of Marion Sims. I think J. Marion Sims. He was a gynecologist. They call him the father of gynecology. The father of gynecology, because he did a lot of experiments. He was also a slave owner. He did a lot of experiments on guess who? Guess who? Black women, slaves, without anesthesia, because he thought that black slaves, black women, couldn't feel pain. Could you believe that? Black women cannot feel pain. And he bragged about it, that it was so great because he didn't have to get any permission and he could do whatever he wanted to do with these women. He invented the speculum, you know, that thing that they push up, you know where? He invented this. He's the father of gynecology. So these are things we need to learn about. We need to know about these things. Because a lot of advances in medicine, in medical research, was done on the backs, on the blood of black people. The Tuskegee Experiment, black people. The mustard gas experiments, black people. Healer cells, which they are still using today. It's immortal, never dies. A black woman. I mean, somebody needs to preach. I mean, the preacher should be preaching this in the church every day to wake up people and to say, wow, you mean to say that all of these advances in medicine that benefited me, was done on black people. Black people was sacrificed. Black people was sacrificed. And they're doing it today again because they're telling you that more black people are getting COVID than anybody else. And they have black people running around scared. And it's the fear that is going to kill you. It's the stress that is going to kill you. The stress of thinking that you are going to get a disease that doesn't exist. This is what is going to kill you. So they are sacrificing black people in another way. So we need, again, to wake up. Wake up. Read a book. Get some knowledge. There's so much out there to learn. There's so much out there to understand. We have to re-educate ourselves. We have to relearn, because, take it from me, I'm a college graduate. And I look at it, I said, why did I waste all this money? It was a waste of my time, waste of my money. I should have gone to culinary school instead. This would have been much better for me, even though I'm a pretty good cook. I should have gone to culinary school. I wasted my time, wasted my money going to a 4-year college to pick up a bunch of lies. Because now I'm relearning. I'm re-educating myself. I'm learning things that I'm just, it blows my mind. It blows my mind when I discover things that I thought was one way, but is the other way. You see? So please start reading. Please start educating yourself. Please start, please realize that our governments lie to us. There is no such thing as democracy. That's a big lie. This is just to keep us, the sheep, arguing amongst ourselves, fighting with each other. The oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. That's the oldest trick in the book. They don't want us to get together, so they're telling you stay 6 feet apart. That's a tactic to have us running around, being afraid of each other, not wanting to talk to each other, looking at each other suspiciously. Because I don't wear a mask when I walk in the street, people look at me funny. They pull themselves like this away from me when I'm walking next to them. I mean, it's crazy. So there's so many other experimentations that, I don't want to make this video too long. It's probably already too long, right? So this book, you can get it, but I really, really want you to get that Virus Mania book and read it, because it is so significant for our times that we're living in right now with these lies, right? But this is a great book for black people and everybody to read, to find out about. This is yet another contribution that black people have made to society, to the world, to the medical industry. You see, the subtitle of this book, it has a long subtitle. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Doctors took her cells without asking. These cells never died. That's why it's called the immortal cells. They're talking about it right now when they write their articles on the CDC website about COVID. They're using it for COVID. I don't know how they're using it, but it was mentioned. They launched a medical revolution and a multi-billion-dollar industry. More than 20 years later, her children found out. Their lives would never be the same. It's a long subtitle, but this is a good book to have. This is a good book to have your children read. Because when you read books like that, if you're interested in science, you would get a little science education. When you read a book like Virus Mania, you would get some education in science. You see? So, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry if this video is too long, but once I get going, you know how it is. Alright? So, take care of yourselves. Drink your lemon water. So please like, share, subscribe to my videos, guys. I'm gonna do a lot more videos like this because these times call for it. You know, you're gonna get a different perspective. You're not gonna see these things on fake news media, mainstream media. So, you know, and I really want my black brothers and sisters to open up their eyes and stop falling for lies by the government and stop being scared. Okay? Love you guys. See you in the next video.